Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Collectible Conversations. We're your hosts. I'm Squeaks. This is Radar.
What's up, guys?
And we're back from Christmas and everything. Today, our main topic is going to be, can you be a collector while also running a business, being an investor, a flipper, whatever you're doing, effectively making this your career? Can you do that while collecting at the same time? Now, before we get into that, let's just, let's jump back a little bit. Radar, how was your Christmas? How was your holiday?
Christmas was, a little weird this year, as I'm sure it was for everybody. It was kind of split up between my family members, where we were just being safe and whatnot. So I had two Christmases, Christmas Eve and Christmas Eve. Did a dinner with one part of the family and a breakfast with with another part of the family. So, it went well. My brothers and sisters love their Lego gifts. I think they've already started putting them together, so that's awesome. Yeah, and I made this Zoid. I spent 8 hours on.
I watched some of that stream. That was exciting.
As
I'm
it falls
actually
apart.
pretty impressed, by the way, with how many hours of entertainment you can get. Because how much was that thing?
$100.
$100. Like $100 Lego set probably takes 2 to 3 hours at most. Like if you're an experienced builder, But like you built that thing for like 8 hours, right?
Yeah. Well, I was struggling.
Yeah.
It was my first time, so.
Okay. Well,
But still, it would. Yeah, I think
I feel like that compared to Legos, like,
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the learning curve on Legos is maybe a little lower. I don't know. I don't think it would take 8 hours to build a $100 Lego set, and so like that to me was just like an impressive amount of value,
Yeah.
right? That you got out. Like you had 8 hours worth of entertainment out of that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, not so bad. And like some people actually stuck around the entire time, which is insane to me. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Shout out to Yuki for the help on getting me started and getting me into this stuff. What about you? How was your Christmas?
It was good. Mine was actually it was pretty relaxing, kind of a more of a normal day. I worked a little bit in the morning, and then my wife had a 24-hour shift, unfortunately, and my immediate family is actually out of state, and so with COVID and everything, we couldn't do travel and all of that. So we had actually did like a Zoom call type thing over Thanksgiving, kind of celebrated Christmas then, knowing we wouldn't be able to get together at Christmas. And so I just kind of relaxed. I watched a little bit of Boruto. I watched football. I did some work, got some scans in for cards and everything, and then I just kind of hung out. I took the day off a little bit, played Hades for a while. I don't know if anyone out there's ever played that game. I'm very addicted to it. I might need to actually delete it off of my computer so I can get some work done. But other than that, yeah, it was you know, it was exactly, kind of what I needed. I just needed a day, a break, kind of decompress and everything. And that's what it was for me. And so it was great. I know this year is hard for everyone, myself included. And so, it was just kind of nice to have a day away. I saw, one of the things I kind of spent time doing was going through Facebook and just kind of seeing like people posting up pictures with their families and gift giving. And like, I don't know, I just like really get into that. Like seeing other people's enjoyment, like really brings me enjoyment. So I spent a little time just kind of like internalizing that and everything, but otherwise it was just a relaxing day, and I just hung out.
Yeah,
So.
the amount of messages that I got from friends and followers and whoever on Instagram and social media was just like astounding. It was incredible. So there was definitely a good section of my day where I was wishing people Merry Christmas and
Merry Christmas
and responding to all that.
yeah.
So that was really special too. That was great to have this year, with everything going on. So thank you to everybody out there, all the supporters, all the fans, all the friends that that reach out. So more than happy to get in touch with all you guys. But yeah.
But now Christmas is over. We're moving on. We have other news, but before we jump into that, everyone, first of all, we just want to both say thank you for all of the support so far. We've gotten so many messages, kind words, comments for improvement, everything about doing the podcast so far, and we do really appreciate it. And that's why we're looking at doing 2 of these a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. And we really do appreciate it. But if you can hit the like button, the subscribe button, the little bell thing, put a comment down below. Let us know how your Christmas went, or let us know anything else you want us to know. Or you can just put an
was
F in the
your
chat. That seems to be a
favorite gift? That's what I want to know.
Gift.
Favorite
if you
gift.
didn't get a gift, favorite gift you saw someone else get, or maybe favorite gift you gave. Anything. It can also be Christmas related, or because it's Sunday, this is going to be the Sunday episode. We will be doing blips and bleps later today. You can always respond to the blips or the bleps, whichever one maybe you want to hear about in the next podcast, or if there's maybe something you want us to cover in the future. So you can always leave that as well. But those things really help us. It'll allow us to keep making the content. It helps it, get seen out there, build the community, which, also helps you guys because the better our community is, the better the information we can provide and kind of all collectively gather together. But enough of that. Let's transition the news. So, first topic is probably the biggest thing to me that happened this week, which is going to seem like really small to everyone, but in the newest Pokemon movie, for the first time, Ash's dad will actually be discussed. Now, I don't believe he's going to be in the movie. I believe Ash is just going to reference kind of like I forget the boy's name, but his relationship with Zarude, the legendary Pokemon. He's kind of like Tarzan, that he's gonna reference his and his dad's relationship, which is kind of unreal because we're going on the 25th anniversary and we have literally never heard of Ash's dad. So I don't know. Did you watch the anime growing up at all?
Yeah, Pokemon's really stretching this one out. Ash's dad has gone off to get some milk or some cigarettes from the gas station, hasn't returned
Maybe
yet.
not cigarettes.
So this is going to be interesting. Now, what movie is this? What's the title of this movie?
I do
Like
not
welcome,
even know.
welcome to the jungle or something.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't really watch a lot of the newer Pokemon movies. I watched the one that was the remake of the first one, and then I watched the one that had Ho-Oh and Marshadow. But other than those, I haven't really watched a lot of the more modern Pokemon movies after kind of like the Latios one and the Celebi one and all those.
Detective Pikachu aside, probably.
Oh, Detective Pikachu. I did watch that one, but I don't really consider that one like a mainline anime movie because it was live action, So
yeah,
I
and it was
that one
kind of a widespread release, not just like a selective Pokemon movie. So, that'll be interesting.
No, you go.
About what? Pokemon? Then the dad? I just, I was just saying that's going to be interesting. I don't have much else to say there. I mean, we've always speculated that it was going to be. Professor Oak was magically his dad or something, right?
Yeah. That has been the thing all these years is that it's Professor Oak or Mr. Mime, which is probably Professor Oak.
That one's a little bit too far, but
a little bit of a stretch. Not as much of a stretch as his dad going to get cigarettes.
You know what would be even?
To get cigarettes.
This one just popped up. Giovanni. What if that's his dad?
Dude, that would be.
Whoa. All right,
that
now
would actually be insane.
Now I'm excited.
Well,
All right.
We might have to analyze that one on a different podcast. But that would be pretty wild, actually. That'd be nuts. Or scary. Anyways, next thing. So the Koro magazine actually this month is releasing a Snorlax promo, and the Snorlax promo is going to have one of the battle styles on it. I believe it was the one that started with an I. Ichigeki or something like that, but it is it comes in the magazine, so if you guys are competitive players and you think Snorlax is going to be a viable card or you want to pick it up maybe prior to that, Snorlax does tend to be a relatively popular Pokemon, so sometimes those promos can be hit or miss. That may be one that actually is quite popular, and depending on the circulation run of the magazine and everything. And I assume that you can not only I'm not as familiar with Koro, but I assume you could subscription base it where they send it in the mail, but that you could also buy it at the store. But with COVID and people not traveling around as much, there may not be as many of those in-store purchases. So maybe, maybe this could be like a good speculation type thing. I don't know. That's not a recommendation. It's just a thought that popped in my head. But there is a new Snorlax promo coming out in Koro. And then finally, for me, the last thing that was really talked about this week that kind of piqued my interest is the distributor shortages that are currently going on in terms of Pokemon product. Many of you have probably heard that right now you cannot get a lot of Pokemon product from distributors. Breakers are having a hard time getting it. Stores are having a hard time getting it. They already had to wait a ton of time for Vivid Voltage. Hidden Fates ETBs got delayed again. And it's just been kind of a mess in terms of getting product. And that this is looking like, from rumblings from distributors, PokeBeach had an article about it, things like that, that those delays will continue into 2021, that products will still be released in waves. And I actually do have a lot of thoughts on this, so I will be releasing a video later this week on my channel on this topic specifically, where I kind of break it all down, my thoughts on it and everything. So if that's something that interests you guys, you can look forward to that next week. Excuse me. Radar, do you have anything coming up this week kind of on your channel or anything?
I do. Well, first of all, Snorlax gets way too much love, I think. He's gotten so many promos recently. Like, come on, Pokemon. Let's give someone else some love.
That would have been a good blip.
It would have been. Um, but yeah, for me, I have, and this one's really, really close to the heart here. I have a podcast coming out tomorrow with the store owner of the store that I shopped at as a kid, and the store that I basically refound Pokemon again back in 2015, 16. You know, I still have a relationship with him now. Today, he's still running the shop. So did a podcast with him that's coming out tomorrow, Monday. And it was just really special to me. So I hope everyone can sit down and enjoy that one, because it's where I got my start, and it's super nostalgic, just like being in the store in general. So looking forward to that one.
Kind of going over it, talking, reliving that. Not only your history with him, but then also his history and kind of like how everything has came to be. And we've briefly spoke that, like, you know, that you were going to go record it, and I could tell how excited you were and everything. So guys out there, if you you know, if you enjoy content like this, you will absolutely love that, because I mean, his interviews are exceptional already. You know, I'm gonna toot your horn just a little bit here, but your interviews are already exceptional. But like, anytime that you can have an interview like that where you're really passionate about the subject matter or the person that you're interviewing, you just already know it's going to be exceptional. So I am really looking forward to that. Other than that, though, that's pretty much all I have for news. If that's pretty much all you got, we can kind of rotate into the big topic.
Yeah. Can you be a collector as well as a business and an investor and a flipper and a whatever?
And whatever you want to be. You know, essentially, can you collect and do any of the financial aspects of the hobby? I think that's So, give us your take.
Gosh, this is a very tough conversation to have. It gets a lot of people heated up. It's honestly, for me, it changes constantly, like in my head, like probably daily, of what I want to do. I have such a hard time sticking with what I'm doing and my goals. But you know, everyone's position is different. As in my position right now, the answer is no. I cannot collect and run a business. It is not plausible. It's not smart. It's more stressful than it is fun. So for me, where I sit today, no. And
now, was it always that way for you?
No. So, you know, we could talk financials here. I was working a 9-to-5 job, making $100K a year. You know, my first job out of college, basically doing well, doing great. I got into Pokemon. And although when I first got into it, it was mainly, you know, I was mainly flipping stuff, but I was able to put things aside and actually build a collection. It was so much easier to do that. But, you know, just being the business person that I am and have the enjoyment of buying and selling things, like, it's just a fun thing to do. You know, I just kind of naturally built a collection. It wasn't really... I never had a goal. So it's hard to say that I was like a collector, a true collector, if that's even a thing. I don't believe that's a thing. So yeah, like at that point I was able to collect if I really wanted to, if I really wanted to focus on it. Yeah, I could have held on to things for forever and kept working that job and doing that. But, you know, I got burnt out in my 9-to-5, and Pokemon got so large and it became such a great opportunity that I wanted to do that full time as a business, so I could be my own boss and do my own thing. And I quickly realized, once I lost that consistent paycheck and my benefits and healthcare paid for, that my number one focus had to be pay my bills, make sure I was still putting money away for retirement, make sure I was taking care of myself, taking care of gifts and all that for people, whatever it might be. And at the position I am in today, although I'm doing quite well selling Pokemon, all those emotions have to be taken away. I cannot sit and hold $20,000 into a collection, into a card, and be okay with it. Like, I need to have the
Mhm.
constant flow of money, and that's how I'm surviving right now. That's how I'm putting food on the table, is by buying and selling. I cannot sit on
Mhm.
things for an extended period of time. I mean, yes, there are little niches here and there of certain cards that I buy strategically to hold on longer than others, but
Mhm.
if I have to sell, I will sell. There is a price point for everything.
Okay.
So for
So
me,
that actually
yeah,
that kind of aligns with how I feel. I get asked a lot, what do you collect? And I do collect video games, which is also something that the store sells. But I was a video game collector prior to ever starting a business, jumping in, to any of this kind of stuff. But the biggest question is always, what Pokemon cards do you collect?
hmm
And I always tell people, mainly Jolteons, but my whole collection, every card that I consider in that collection was a card that was given to me. So if somebody gives me a gift, I don't sell that gift, obviously. But if, you know, if a card comes in that maybe I don't have in my collection, I don't just put it in my collection. And for the longest time, when I first started the business, I already knew about myself that I have a very addictive personality. And Pokemon is something that is made, I wouldn't say to necessarily addict you, but I think it does for a lot of people. I think people get hooked on it, whether it's opening booster packs, whether it's buying cards, just adding to your collection, spending time, it can even be just a time addiction, just looking at everything and, messing around with it. And so I think for me, knowing that about myself, it was one of those things that when I first jumped into like, I'm gonna run a business, I'm gonna, I want to do this because I was a player prior to. I had to make that decision right at the start, and so for me, it was something I had to say, I'm not gonna collect. I'm only going to do this, and effectively, the store inventory would be like my collection. That I need to be able to find my fulfillment out of owning the item for a period of time, but maybe not forever. And so for me, that's actually pretty lucky because I really do get a lot of enjoyment out of the chase for an item. But that I don't like once I have that item, it's kind of almost lost its
hmm
mystique. Like there's a few items out there that I have been searching for a long time and will continue to. The Nintendo World Championship cart for the
hmm
NES is one of them.
okay,
But I have this feeling that once I get it, it's almost I'm gonna realize that that journey was more of it than what actually owning the item was. And so, we'll kind of see maybe someday I'll actually get one. But right now, the idea is more about that chase. And I've had this talk with a lot of people, you included. I've kind of watched. That's why I ask, has it always been that way? Because I've watched your mentality
yeah,
shift, and I get in pretty heated arguments with people over
hmm
this because there are a lot of collectors, that we see in our community that are also trying to do the business side, but they're not willing to kind of relinquish the reins, on that collecting side.
hmm
And I I just don't know how it can be done. Like can you do it? Do you think there's any world where someone can do both?
it's 100%, my opinion, a financial discussion. If you
Hmm.
have them, in my, so I have rich taste. The cards that I want, the food that I eat,
Can you define that real quick? Like, is that what you're doing? Define it, because I need to know what you
yeah,
mean by
the,
rich
the
taste.
the
Okay.
cards that I want, the food that I eat, the trips that I take, the places that I go, the things that I enjoy are more expensive than what a typical human would get enjoyment out of, right?
Okay.
So
Now, do you enjoy it because they're expensive, or just the things that you tend to like are more expensive?
that's something that a therapist would have to pick out of my brain because I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I mean,
Welcome to therapy
yeah,
hour with Squeaks and Radar.
I would tell myself no, but to be honest, I'm sure there's a psychological thing in the back that says, "Oh, this is expensive. It must be better."
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm sure it goes both ways. But so for someone like, and collectors can be anything, right? You could collect one pen and be done and be a collector, right? But you could also
True.
collect,
Yeah.
you know, 100 booster boxes that is worth $2 million or whatever, and be a collector in that aspect too. So it's a definition that fits each individual differently, and
Hmm.
that's like the biggest thing I want to get out there is people need to be okay with what each individual collects and not get mad at each other for doing things. Because what you said in your first statement about the chase and the fact that you get to own that copy or that piece of history for a little
Mhm.
bit of time and get enjoyment out of it in that aspect. That's what I'm doing right now, and that's what I get the most hate for in the community right now is being a flipper of trophy cards. To me,
Mhm.
I'm not in a financial position to buy these cards and hold on to them until I die. It's just not
Yeah.
plausible. If I had
Mhm.
millions of dollars in the bank, absolutely that's what I would be doing. I would fill this case up behind me with trophy cards, look at them every day and enjoy it. But it's just not financially responsible for me to do that. So the fact that I'm able to chase down these cards, these pieces of history in a world that I get so much enjoyment out of, being Pokemon,
Mhm.
the fact that I can just hold on to them, whether for 5 seconds or 5 days or 5 months, whatever the time frame is, that means so much to me because I got to experience that for a little bit. Not many people have gotten to hold a trophy Kangaskhan in their hand. I
Mhm.
can't wait for the day that I hold a Pikachu Illustrator in my hand, whether it's mine or someone else's copy or however
Uh-huh.
that process happens. So that's my motivation behind what I'm doing right now is to experience that history of the hobby. And
Mhm.
it's such a yeah, it sucks. I look back and like, wow, I have this amazing collection on Instagram and I only own 10% of it still, right? So it's hard to look in the
But
past. But
if you didn't sell the first 90% or the first one or two cards that you had, it would never have facilitated any of those. So that Instagram
right,
just wouldn't even be there.
exactly. I would not I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So like that had to be done and we talked about that the first blep that was a big controversy of trophy cards are what was
A
a,
risky
a
a
risky
risky
buy
investment type
and
thing,
how you
yeah.
explain it being a bait. Like the people that have trophy cards and have been talking about trophy cards are in a financial position to own them.
Mhm.
And they can do what they want with them at most of these guys, right? At least S. Pratt talking about it, he has put himself in a very safe financial position based on my understanding of him. I don't know him
Mhm.
very well, but
You're
um,
not his bookkeeper?
yeah,
Is
I'm
that what
not.
you're
Yeah,
saying?
I don't. Yeah, but he seems like a
Mhm.
very bright young gentleman. So I'm sure that and you see the prices he puts up on eBay, so he's okay with selling them and not selling them. He does what he wants to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
it's
think the Illustrator, that we were talking about in the previous podcast,
mhm.
was listed up at like 3 million now or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. He just boosted it up another million after that 900
Mhm.
thousand sale. So it's just a matter of an individual. Like if you can't afford it, but you have the mindset. Like this is an empty box. If I had the mindset to like collect empty boxes and be happy with just this, that would be awesome. But I
Mhm.
don't have that. Some people do.
Yeah.
So it's a back and forth conversation between each person and where you are at in life during that conversation, I guess. I probably go back and
Mhm.
forth on it the most out of anybody, but I'm also the most public about about what I'm thinking and doing with my stuff. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's a tough conversation because we could talk about this tomorrow, and I might feel completely differently about
You
what
might
I'm
be
saying.
collected again. Hey,
Yeah,
everybody, I
yeah.
bought a new collection piece. No, and like, this is something that, for me, Pokemon is my primary.
Hmm.
Video games are supplementary, Legos are supplementary, all these other products are supplementary, which is why I think I tend to gravitate like with collecting more towards video games because it isn't that primary, which
Hmm.
I know has to be where my main focus is on that Pokemon stuff, and I don't want to get capital tied up and start getting emotionally invested because one of the big things with collecting is emotional investment, right? You find very few collectors that are collecting something and have just no attachment to it,
Hmm.
right? And I think maybe the closest I've heard of that is I saw in one of Dave Person's videos where he
Yeah,
talked about kind of the English collecting started as something maybe that he was kind of excited about and then eventually just kind of became a task. Like he
yeah.
had to do it. Or like and so maybe that transition happens, but I think for the most part, people have some type of emotional attachment to their collections. And one of the worst things I think you can do in investing or flipping or whatever is adding an emotion
Hmm.
because it tends to cloud your judgment and make you make hasty or risky or poor decisions. And so they almost, in my mind, contradict one another, right? And I've had some pretty cool items over the years. I had one of the Pokemon with the Magic the Gathering backs. I had the Growlithe, Bucano, and when I owned that card, I originally bought it because I saw an opportunity in it. I had heard about them in passing. I was at Gen Con one year and I saw it in a booth, and I saw it was a Magic booth, and I just saw a Growlithe sitting there, and I was like, there is no way that's what I think it is. So I asked them. Sure enough, it was, and they knew what they had. I think they priced it at I think they had it at like 2,000. I offered them like a grand, and they met me in the middle at 1,500 or something.
Hmm.
And it was cool to hold that piece at that time. And that was crazy for me. And that was a lot of money at the time when I bought that. I think that was like 2015 or 16.
Oh wow.
And that was one of the bigger items I'd ever bought at the time. But then as time went on, I took it to regionals and I showed it off at booths. I let people hold it. So I really got to have that experience of owning that card, to share it with people around, to get to talk about the story of how they came to be. For a while, people kind of knew me as that guy that
Hmm.
had, owned one. But then it got to the point that I had experienced it. And I think this is, kind of one of those things where, you had mentioned that a lot of it comes down to the financial picture. I think it also comes down to the temperament. And I do want to touch on the financial picture in a second, but I think it comes down to the temperament of the collector, right? We have a mutual friend, to me, he's a pretty close friend. Um, we'll just call him by his Discord name, Sub F, but he is somebody that tends to deal in a lot of these high-end items. And I find that him and I are very similar in the sense that, we really enjoy that chase, that journey, and maybe even part of the time of owning it and kind of getting to share in that experience with others. But then everything has a price. Everything gets to kind of what facilitates the next journey. And sometimes I think of it like food, which is funny because I'm a pretty picky eater. But would you want to have one food that you could just eat every day for the rest of your life? Or would you want to have a bunch of different foods, that you could try all the time? And I
Hmm.
kind of really, I was thinking about that in my mind when you're talking about the trophy cards in your Instagram, about how, you only own 10% of, whatever you've shown there so far. But it's kind of like you've been, like a taste test or something, an
Yeah.
international food fair, and you're trying all the different foods as you go. You may not still have the food left over that you had at the start, but you're still getting to try new things and have new experiences. And I think a lot of people in this hobby get flack for that, or they get labeled flippers, right? Like you had even mentioned that you've kind of been labeled the flipper
Hmm.
of trophy cards. And I think that's kind of
I like
I
it.
don't think disingenuous is the right word. I think that's kind of a falsehood to just label somebody that without really knowing their intentions.
Hmm.
Because the reality is you're being very pragmatic. You're being very honest about your situation that, not only do you really enjoy Pokemon, but you also want to do this as a career, and that you don't have the financial liquidity at this point in time to set these cards back and just put them on a shelf and let them mature while maintaining day-to-day operation on everything else.
Hmm.
And I actually think that's a really mature perspective. So you're finding a way to kind of have your cake and eat it too. You get to still buy these cards and make your money and run your business. You also get the experience to own them. And I don't think that because in our hobby, flipper tends to have kind of a negative
Yeah.
connotation, right? Flipper or scalper or whatever.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's really a fair attribution, but I do think that a lot of times people that, I almost think it's like you're either a collector or you're a storefront. And a lot of times I think before maybe 2019, the mold was always like you either have a brick and mortar or you don't.
Hmm.
And now it's kind of more you have your own website or you don't.
Hmm.
And because we've kind of shifted to that online, but anything else in the middle is just you're just flipper. There's
Yeah.
no gray area there. There's no further analysis, right? And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this topic up, is not to just hey, everyone out there, quit calling people flippers, but to kind of shed light on the fact that everyone's situation is different. Everyone's perspective is different. Their motives are different. Their situations are different. And so to sit and label one person as oh, you're a flipper, oh, you're a collector, I would say that I'm all of them.
Hmm.
I collect things just for a period of time, right? And
Yeah.
then it moves on.
Yeah.
I also flip things. I buy it, and there are things I will sell immediately. And then there are other things I buy and I hold them long term. And that's been a more recent revelation in the business as liquidity has warranted, which is kind of what you were discussing. But do you feel that's an accurate assessment as someone that, you had kind of said you felt maybe you have been labeled that way before?
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel yeah, I'm 100% all of those things, and I don't care how many people disagree with that statement,
Hmm.
but that's what I am. That's what I believe you are to be. And yeah, but yeah, the whole negative connotation towards flippers is and always will be that way. I don't think it's going to change. I don't think,
Yeah.
um, but I did have Nate on the podcast.
Hmm.
Didn't what did you sell the Growlithe for?
5,000 was what I
Okay,
sold it
because it's up on
to him.
eBay now for
Because for a while, I had to think about if I was actually allowed to say that number because we had an agreement when I first sold it that I wouldn't say
okay,
what it sold for. But then he ended up coming out and saying it later. So yes,
okay,
yeah. So I sold it to him for 5,000
yeah,
because one, he just wanted the experience of owning it. We'd actually kind of discussed that. He was like,
yeah,
"Well, why do you want to sell it?" And I kind of just like explained out, that it's more about the journey. He's like, "Oh, I'm actually kind of the same way,"
hmm,
and that he just wanted to have that experience of owning it. And now, if you look, I think he bought that from me in 27 2018 maybe,
hmm,
and now he has it listed
yeah.
up, but
It's on
for
eBay
him it
for
was kind of the experience that he wanted to take it that next step and see if he could actually get it encapsulated, right?
yeah,
I had called at one time I had called BGS, they said they wouldn't do it. I'd called PSA, they said they wouldn't do it. CGC didn't exist at the time, they definitely would have done it because they have the technology to verify it. but um but he ended up having a contact at BGS or a friend of a friend or something that managed to kind of get it in there and get them to do their research on it and use like magic librarities and everything to kind of, trace that history of it and actually did get it slapped. So I
yeah,
think for him, it was a similar situation to mine, but kind of that journey was actually getting the card slabbed.
hmm,
And so yeah,
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
5,000 for
Yeah,
sure.
we all have different journeys. Like you mentioned, Dave Person, and like although from the outside it looks like he doesn't have an emotional attachment, he does, but it's in a different way. Our emotional attachment is to Pokemon itself. Our experience as children playing and
Hmm.
learning what Pokemon was. His emotional attachment is that journey itself. He can't name more than 15 Pokemon or whatever,
Yeah,
but he has emotions tied to it. It's just in a different way that we all experience. So
correct.
it just looks a lot like he doesn't have an attachment at all to it, but he does. It's just a different way. Um,
In different way. And I
yes.
think I think that is an amazing point that not just like everyone's journey is different, but the way people look at things is different,
Hmm.
right? I get asked a lot. I mentioned just briefly earlier that I'm a picky eater, right? I get asked a lot like, "Well, does food just not taste good to you?" No, or I would eat it. Like it's a very but to a lot of people it does. And right in the just like people's collecting preferences, some people love gold stars and love shinings. Other people hate them. Some people just collect Pokemon they like and the art, regardless of if it's an ultra rare or a common. And
Hmm.
I don't think uh, you know, investing, flipping, running a business is really any different from that. Everyone kind of has their personal taste, their own, risk tolerances, their own business plan, their own niche of what they want to go into. Yours is trophies. I tend to do kind of graded cards as a whole, Japanese merchandise, things like that. And like, everyone has like a different taste almost, a different taste palette for this stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like people tend to maybe not try to understand other people's taste palettes or perspective on this stuff.
Yeah, and that's a very hard thing for people to do just in general is to look and understand or look through the eyes of someone else and understand, you know, what could be going or happening in their lives. So, I mean, outside of Pokemon, that's such a huge point that even like that just kind of brings me back to like Mr. Rogers basically that talking about not knowing everyone's walk of life and trying to understand what each person is going through. So, it's just take a step back,
Hmm.
think about what you're gonna do or say or how you're gonna act, and try to just open your arms and be comfortable with what someone else is doing, right? Oh,
Yeah. I'm opening my arms.
but
But
yeah,
but no, and I think that is kind of like where I wanted to lead this is because of the fact that I think a lot of people jump into this industry and they, maybe they were a collector. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they came from a different hobby or maybe they just knew Pokemon growing up and they see an opportunity.
hmm,
And then they get in and either they wanted to collect from the start or they decide they want to start collecting while they do this. And I think it's really dangerous. And you had mentioned earlier that it's really based on your financial picture. And I kind of want to break that down more on what that would look like because for me, I do see a world someday where I could collect Pokemon if I decide I wanted to, right? And still do everything I'm doing now. I look back at 2015 versus which is when I started the business versus where I am today, and it's a much different picture. If I would have collected anything in 2015, nothing would have ever happened with Squeaks Game World
Mm-hmm.
ever. Like I had a binder of cards and $200 in the bank. If that binder of cards would have been my collection, do you know how hard you would have to flip $200 over 5 years to get to where I am today? You wouldn't have enough hours in the day. You wouldn't even be close.
Right.
So those cards in my binder had to help facilitate, right? And those cards that help facilitate couldn't be collection. And so if I came in the gate right there, well, this is my collection binder. I'm not touching it. I'm never selling it. I wouldn't have anything. And so, because those cards facilitated not only the cards in those binders, I think the highest thing was maybe a Ray Gold Star.
Mm-hmm.
I've owned those things 10 times over, over the years.
Yeah.
And what I own today far eclipses what I started with. So part of it to me is also, I think I don't want to quote wrong, but I'm pretty sure the person I actually heard this quote from was SM Pratt. One time in the E4 Discord, he had said something about like investing is the pragmatic form of collecting. And if he wasn't the one that said it, I apologize. But somebody said it in there, and I'm pretty sure it was him. And I love that quote so much because every time I think about collecting, I think about the financial moves that people could be making within their collecting journey, that their collection would be so much farther.
Mm-hmm.
And, to me, I think the financial picture part of it is to get yourself to a threshold where you can start to maybe kind of take a percentage off, and put that as a collection, but to where whatever you're working with pool of money wise does not hinder your day to day, meaning no collection buy is going to come through your door that you don't have the opportunity to grab, unless it's something just absolutely insane that would like eclipse your net worth anyways. But
Mm-hmm.
like, you're not going to miss an opportunity that comes up. You're not going to have, a ton of leverage debt or credit card debt or something like that that you can't pay. You're not going to miss out on, which I guess this would be opportunity, but like a big set release or something like that, or not be able to get your full allocation. Or sometimes, maybe not in 2020, but, years prior, sometimes distributors would call you and be like, hey, we have this extra pallet in the warehouse. Do you want any of it or all of it or whatever, and I would know people that were so leveraged to the teeth that they couldn't take an opportunity like that, even though it was, a huge score. And so to me, I could see a world where you can, get to doing not just collecting, but investments. Because I'm a firm believer also that you really should not be doing any investments if you're starting out your business, unless you just have insane capital,
Mm-hmm.
because you need that capital for operational costs, not just the overhead of the inventory, but also, people don't realize all the fees that start to add up. Your eBay fees, your Amazon fees, your subscription fees, you know, I just paid a fee to Canva so I can make thumbnails for YouTube videos. I just paid another fee to this program to give me better keywords, like that kind of stuff. And those fees really start to add up. And
Mm-hmm.
so you need all that money to operate, to
Mm-hmm.
effectively start to grow what you're doing. If you just take all that money, park it in an investment, you have to wait till that investment matures to get any of that money out. And so for me, an investment is only as good as the opportunity it doesn't cost you, right? An investment's great if it's making you money passively, as long as it's not costing you opportunity. If I go spend $100,000 on a trophy card, but then my distributor calls me up with a pallet of, you know, let's use something like really Plasma Storm ETBs. They're like 3 grand a piece, and they say we just found a pallet of Plasma Storm ETBs, $100,000 for all of them, and there's 500K on the pallet, but now my money's tied up in this trophy card, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't find a buyer for it. Well, now I just lost $400,000 on not being able to get that pallet. So now my trophy card would have to go to 500K just to make up the opportunity cost loss on missing out on that pallet. All hypothetical.
Yeah.
But that to me is kind of the disjunct, right? And this is even going back to that like trophy cards are a bait. And I don't just want to harp on trophy cards because people don't just invest in those, but just anything. I see a lot of people that are grading cards right now. I'm sure you are seeing the same thing. It's like the big thing this year is grading cards. And there's a lot of people out there that are like PSA only. I'm going to grade my cards PSA only. I'm starting my business. And now their cards are sitting for 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Or, even if we don't want to turn this into a PSA CGC thing, right? CGC, they just turn their turnaround times to 60 business days, which is going to be about 3 months once you factor all the shipping and everything. Your cards are sitting for 3 months. Your money is now tied up for 3 months, meaning that you can't, let's say you send $1,000 worth of
I
cards
I just
and
posted a
$1,000 of
highlight.
grades.
Charlie, from when I had Charlie on my podcast, he sent
Hmm.
30,000 this summer. 30,000
Yeah,
cards at $10 a card. That's 300 grand. That's a lot of money tied up.
300 grand. And like, if he has the liquidity, right, wherever, and
Mm-hmm.
I suspect he does, but where he can continue to do everything, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that liquidity and you're just, kind of sitting on your hands, and I have an example of this because we've been talking in our Discord a lot, collectively as a community, and a lot of things people are saying are, well, I just don't really have any inventory right now. I'm waiting on it to get back from grading.
Mm.
Well, now that inventory is costing you opportunity because
Yeah.
you can't go out and buy new collections and flip them over. You're not doing anything. You're just kind of waiting, right? So now all this time that's passing is opportunity cost. If there is opportunity out there, and there's opportunity out there in every market.
Right.
So to me, you know, I don't really think you can do those things unless it doesn't hinder your day to day. Troll and Toad, the largest hobby like trading card store out there, they don't grade cards. They sell graded cards that like third party vendors will put up on their website, and every once in a while they'll have their own graded card that they bought from someone in like a collection or something. But they don't go grade singles
Mm.
because their literal model and what makes them so successful is churn and burn. We take it in, we pump it out, and just do that model over and over and build up as much cash as possible so they can continue to buy as many collections as possible, which allows them to have the highest prices. Adding and grading to that and adding in a longevity of, oh, we're going to buy this collection and then we're going to wait 3 to 9 months to get it back, completely breaks their model down, which is why they don't do it. They understand where their strength is and where their weakness is, and their weakness would be that time, and their strength is the continual flow of the money.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're starting a business, you just don't have the luxury of not having that continual flow of money, because all it takes is one bad set release that you put in an order on, and the rest of your money is tied up in something that's illiquid or that you can't get back, and now you have no money, or maybe even have debt, and now you're just hosed, or you're sitting on your hands. So many people right now are waiting on graded cards, and not only did they miss the big spike that happened because their graded cards have been sitting in grading for who knows how long, but they also missed the most popular month of the year, which was December.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you run a business and you miss the biggest holiday month of the year? You
And
know what
they're
I
gonna
mean?
get
And
they're
like,
gonna get hit with up charges because all the prices have gone crazy. So hopefully they can afford that.
well,
Um,
and then you have to factor retrace, right?
yeah.
Do they get hit with upcharges based on the highest sold price
Right.
versus what the prices are now? Like, and those are all things that I feel like you have to factor in when in reality and that's the thing is I don't think people look at grading in that investment category. I think they look at grading as part of like almost the flipper churn and burn
It always
category.
has been
And and
until
and I
now.
think that categorization has to be incorrect now because
100%.
back back then it made sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could send a card out to be graded. I have literal PSA submissions from like 2015 where I would send in like January on a bulk sub and get it back in February.
Wow.
Like that to me is still churn and burn
Yeah.
because it's a relative close time period. But when you're talking now, at minimum, if you go CGC quarter of a year, at maximum, you know, 9 months or more,
Yeah.
you're not churn and burning anymore. Now there's an actual time expense there, and that maybe leads into a bigger topic of how people don't value their time, but there is a time expense there. And so for me, if you're gonna collect or even invest, maybe, and maybe that should have been it, collecting and investing versus kind of like flipping to start the business,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think you can do it at start unless your financial liquidity provides, unless you're just coming into this from a really good financial perspective. But I don't think most stores do. And I think the reason most stores don't is because most people get into doing this because they're really passionate about, one of the card games or one of the collectibles that they're getting into. Because let's be honest, this is not the most lucrative industry. You could take any amount of money that you're going to start with and put it into almost any other industry that's been proven as successful and make far more money, right? People do it because they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a firm believer that investments take a backseat. I didn't invest when I started this. The first investment I made where I put something back, like safety deposit box back, was in 2019.
Hmm.
And so I had been open for 4 years, and I put back a little Samson NES cart and a Yoshi Story International, which also were separated from my collection. I like that I have those, and I've always wanted those, but they are not personal collection items. I do keep those separate, and I think
Hmm.
that's important. But I never even invested in something like that until I was 4 years in, to where I felt I can park this money in those and not have that detract from anything else I'm doing.
Yeah.
The same thing with the Charizards. I originally bought the Charizards last year, the big Charizard play I made, where I bought 15 first eds, graded various grades. Um, and I parked that money in those thinking I was maybe gonna have to hold them for like 5 years.
Hmm.
But I didn't put that money back on those. I wanted to make that play back in 2016. But I didn't put the money in those until I felt I was in a position where I could set that, $17,500 aside and it not affect everything else I'm doing.
Right.
Have you kind of found that maybe that's kind of where your headspace is getting at, or maybe do you not agree? That kind of thing. I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on, I just word
No,
word
I
vomited
think I
everything
think
there.
opportunity cost is the key term here. It's the most
Hmm.
important thing to discuss. We've had multiple discussions one on one about with me in my financial position, I mean the amount of stuff that I've owned and bought and sold that I've had to bring in outside investors on. That's opportunity cost that I
Hmm.
lost out on because I didn't have the funds readily available at that time, so I had to bring in outside money, and then I split the profits. And
Hmm.
although that's still a great thing to do, and it's beneficial when that opportunity is there, like take what you can get, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
and it hedges your risk
and
as well.
that
Just to
that
know.
as well, yeah, it hedges your risk as well. But um, it was just a clear, like there's been so many clear cut opportunities for me that have worked out and done incredibly well that I would like if I hadn't extended myself in other avenues, I could have taken full advantage of for myself and been in a much
Hmm.
better position today by doing that, and being readily uh, or having cash readily available, because this is such a cash demanding industry to be in. You need to have liquidity ready to go at any moment,
Hmm.
and that's something that I'm still working on myself to on a discipline aspect. Because when I get money, I like to. I have so many opportunities of things to buy. Like I'm always looking. Like it's
Hmm.
an addiction. Like looking and trying to
Yeah.
find stuff. So no matter at any point, and I'm so confident, probably overly confident in this stuff, that once I sell something big, I pick up the next thing. So that's
Hmm.
just a discipline that I am learning slowly to better myself, better my business.
Hmm.
Because I've talked to multiple store owners who I have very close relationships with, and they always tell me like they want me to buy into their business, or like you should just start one. Like you're doing so well, like you're doing this and this,
Hmm.
and they tell me like you want to start with a minimum $300,000 of cash and inventory to
Hmm.
just start, which is a
Hmm.
lot. Like if you had $300,000, throw that in Tesla stock, throw that in Apple stock, like you'll do great. But yeah, it's
Maybe.
hopefully. So yeah,
We are
it's
not licensed financial professionals, so none of this.
yeah. Don't ever listen to anything I say. Um,
Radar told me to put my money in Tesla.
I got to be careful about that. But yeah, it's just like it's such a cash heavy industry. People need to understand that you can't just come out of nowhere and be successful.
Hmm. Hmm.
And not even the difficulty of that, but like we've mentioned this whole time, the difficulty of having the correct mindset and putting
Yeah.
yourself in that right mindset that was the hardest thing for me, and still
Hmm.
is the hardest thing for me. It's thankfully I was able to find stuff to collect like Dragon Ball Z, and even
Hmm.
that's getting to a price point where it doesn't make sense to like kind
Yeah.
of buy and hold on to. I've got a
Hmm.
couple video games now, thanks to you, that I got graded. That's not going anywhere. Don't let me sell that.
Hmm.
That Super Smash Melee. Um,
Okay.
that's not going anywhere. But yeah, I mean,
But
it's.
but I like what you say there about the mindset. Like it really is a mindset, and it's getting yourself in that mindset. Oops. That you're gonna understand opportunity costs, that you're gonna understand valuing your time, that you're going to understand that while yes, you could go buy this item today and put it in your collection and really enjoy it, putting your funds in your full effort, because I consider your funds as part of your effort, because your funds are a direct derivement of how much work and effort you put into your business, right? The more
Hmm.
work and effort you put in, if you're doing things correctly, you should be making more money. And so those funds, you're effectively reinvesting into yourself, right? It doesn't mean you can never own those things someday if you want to have them forever. It just means that you're willing to have patience in delayed gratification in exchange for finding future success with your business. You're willing to wait and not get that instant gratification, that dopamine rush of I just hit buy it now on eBay. And then you you get it later. You get
Hmm.
it later in seeing your business be successful, and that someday you'll get to buy that item and still have your business be successful. That you're not making a trade-off of my business or my item.
Hmm.
That you get both. You just have to wait and take that time trade-off of putting in the work, right? And that's always, I think, the biggest problem. People want both, right? I want my business to be successful, but I want to collect. So I'm going to go out and buy this collection for $1,000. I'm going to take $800 of the cards out of it for my own collection and then try to make this last 200 remake my money, and it probably won't. But now I don't know why my business doesn't have any money and it's not successful, but here I am sitting with $40,000 in collection cards and that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
that to me is kind of, you can see I'm kind of getting worked up because this is like one of those things that I always try to get people to understand, that maybe even I didn't fully understand at the start, right? And I didn't collect at the start, but there were definitely like better ways I could have used my money and my time. And that I always want people to really understand is, if you are starting a business, and I consider a business, you don't even have to like go file an LLC or whatever you're going to do. If you're starting a business, I consider this like you're going to take time out of your day to buy and sell cards to make money. If you are going to do that, you have to be pragmatic in how you're doing it and be honest with yourself. What are your goals? What are your intentions? Do you value your time? You have to value your time. If you don't, it doesn't matter how much money you make if it cost averages out to that you made $3 an hour, because you could have just went and worked it, anywhere for that. And so I think that is kind of like, for at least for me, unless you have something to add, kind of where I want to wrap it up is just that if you're getting ready to take this journey, or maybe you're already on this journey, sit down and really audit what you're doing. Set benchmarks. What are your goals? How are you using your time? Are you using your time efficiently? How are you using your money? Do you really think it's feasible for you to collect? If you think it is, really ask yourself, how far could your business get with what you're funneling into your collection? Is it possible that maybe you could acquire those collection things later, and even if they inflate in price, they won't inflate as rapidly as what you could inflate your business?
Hmm.
And really sit down and have that perspective, but be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself and you just kind of tell yourself what you want to hear, oh, I can make it work, I know I can make it's all for naught. It's completely not worth it. And I see people every day, that are holding cards, and yet then talk about, they can't afford their living expenses, they can't afford their business expenses, or that they've got all this credit card debt, or they've still got student loans. I can assure you that yes, 2020 was a huge spike year. You could take almost any card and it's going to outpace the rate of inflation. It's going to outpace the 7% in the stock market, interest rates, whatever. But on a standard year, a year where things are stagnant, where effectively the work is where you make your money, not the card growth, because a lot of times cards just go sideways and the
Hmm.
prices don't really change. If you take any of those years, I can assure you that just putting a card on a shelf and it going sideways is not going to outpace your 6% on your student loan rate, or your, whatever percent on your car loan, or things like that. And I think a lot of people get so enamored with the, I'm going to run my own business, I'm going to flip cards, I get to do what I love every day, be my own boss. If you want to do that, that is fine. But have perspective, weigh all of this out, learn what opportunity cost is, learn how to weigh it, learn what time management is, learn how to weigh your time in terms of value, and set realistic benchmarks. If you want to be someone that makes $50 an hour someday, start valuing your time at $50 an hour and figure out how you can make that $50 an hour. And it's probably not going to be by putting stuff in your collection right away. So I don't want to, beat the horse to death, but that's kind of where I stand on it. Is I think it's something that, like you said, once you get the financial liquidity or get your financial picture to where you could reanalyze or refocus, maybe yes, down the road you could collect or even invest. But until you get to that point, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It
Hmm.
really doesn't.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. I think we have come to terms, and we don't hate each other after the conversation. So thank you for.
Yeah, well, that was, is that a success? Does everyone else out there hate us? Let us know in the comment section below.
I'm sure we'll get some flack.
Yeah,
But
oh, absolutely.
let's move on to our favorite segment, our only segment, really. Blips and bleps. Music plays in the
Blips.
background. We're not there yet, guys. We'll get music eventually. Today we
Yeah,
have our 3 blips and our 3 bleps. So
correct.
let's start. Snow is overrated.
I really do hate this segment, by the way. My first blep, Comet is the best reindeer name.
I'm singing the song in my head if that's what you guys. I
For
don't.
anyone out there, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen, Rudolph.
I imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger in Jingle All the Way running to the. Okay. Goku is the strongest character across all universes, animes, everything. Goku.
Okay. I'm so mad. My next one is that the new Digimon the Trading Card game that just came out in English, or is it's in its like early release phase. It comes out in January based off the Japanese one. Um, will fail within 2 years or less if they are going to continue on their current distribution model and release cycle, kind of like what they did with Dragon Ball Super.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yes. I,
Mm.
I believe there will be a new Pokemon Snap contest and exclusive promos released with the new Pokemon Snap whenever it comes out.
My last one, probably the most debatable one, whether it's 600 or 2,000, additional round of stimulus checks is not going to cause a drastic spike in card prices beyond just whatever the standard rate of increase of inflation is. So it won't be like what we just saw or anywhere close.
Okay. Well,
Oh, very well.
thank you for.
Tip my hat.
Yep.
This segment, by the way, is so hard because I just want to comment on everything no matter what. I think that's just like in both of our natures, just to
Yeah.
like have a discussion about everything we say. So the second you say something, like I just want to like analyze it.
Yeah.
Like, what really is the best reindeer name? Let's break it down.
I hope that's the most brought up one, so we can talk about
Of
it.
all the good ones we said, the reindeer discussion.
But
I
that's
hope
it.
it's not.
That's it for blips and bleps today, guys. Please.
Correct. So if you guys want to see, or if you want to see, if you want to see us discuss one of these blips or bleps more, let us know, whether it's in the comment section, in Discord, on social media. Let us know what your you can actually hashtag us at hashtag blips and bleps. You can yeah, if you want to. I just thought of that.
I like that.
Right on the fly. I know you're so impressed right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you guys want to know more about one of those, we'll only do one, so pick your favorite. We'll take whoever, whichever one you guys vote is the favorite, and then we will discuss it on the next Wednesday podcast, and that will kind of fill this in. So Sundays we'll do the blips and bleps. Wednesdays we'll analyze one of them, the most talked about one. And yeah, other than that, that pretty much wraps up the show. Do you have anything else that you want to add, Radar?
No, I mean episode 3 done successfully. I hope you had a great holiday, and we'll be flowing
3,
into
dude.
the.
That's two more than one, which is pretty impressive if you ask me. We made it.
We did it.
We're big time.
We can retire. But
We're done.
thank you guys all for watching. We greatly appreciate the support. Please subscribe to Squeaks Game World and to me if you want. Hit that
Yeah,
like
please
button,
subscribe to Radar.
and yeah, we'll check out we'll check in with you guys next time.
See y'all next time.
What topic are we discussing today?
If you
Cap off this time, so I don't have to.
Mamma mia, mamma mia.